Alright guys, today I'm going to be installing my oil pressure gauge on a 430 Steiner with the Kohler 27 horse. Hopefully you guys can see that. I don't know how much light's in here. Anyway, I've had the gauge in here for a while. I just never got the sending unit hooked up. So I figured since I'm going to do it, I'll go ahead and show you. The gauge is a Teleflex gauge, marine gauge, just like all the other gauges that are used on these tractors. Teleflex sold to Sierra, and then I think they're owned by Seastar. Click the description below. I'll put item numbers and tell you the gauge and everything you need if you want to order one or get one. I got this through a marina, but you have to get the sending unit with the gauge, whatever one you get. This is I forget the ohms. I'll write them in below also, but it's a group C for that gauge for the sending unit. I went with the 80 psi unit, not the 100, just because these don't read a whole lot. So make sure you get the 80 one if you do get one. Summit, you can get any kind of gauges, but just make sure you get the proper electronic sending unit to go with the gauge you're specifying. There's a cap in there. You pull that out that comes with the tractors. Fortunately for these, they come liquid cooled for the models. Most of your wires are already here. Your power wire that I'm going to hook up, that's for my light, the ground. All this was already in here, so all I really have to do is hook up the power wire, which I'll show you which one there, and then hook up my sender unit wire, and I'm good to go. I pulled the choke before I started removing everything, put a rag in there to keep all dirt out. I would go into detail on taking this apart, but I don't think it's really that necessary. It's just going to make a longer video because I'm sure most of you guys can figure out how to take the air cleaner. You got to take the air cleaner out, then there's some bolts. This comes off. Make sure you don't lose the gasket that goes onto there. This is where I'm going to put it in. You unplug this. This is for your oil pressure, light to let you know when it's low. I'll remove this, and initially I was going to try to hook this up in here. There's just not enough room under here, so now I have to go through the pain in the ass of rerouting it, but that's my only other option. I really can't find another sending unit smaller, and I don't want to. I want the electronic sender. I don't want the one with the hose, the manual. I don't know. I just think the running the wire is easier. And so you take the bracket off of here, and you have to loosen this up and move this back. And since I got it all apart, I'm going to go ahead. I got fuel line, and I'm going to redo the fuel line since I'm already here. This is getting old. It's not bad, but I just figured, hell, usually if I got something apart, I might as well do it now. Just save me some time in the long run. So I'll show you all the stuff that you need to do this if you want to do it. And I mean, this might even work on other tractors too with the Kohler 27 horse. So let me go over here and show you the parts list, and then we'll get started. All right, so after you pick out your gauge, which I wanted mine to match, so I went with the Amega series that are pretty much like the factory Steiner. I got my sending unit. I'm going to remove the switch that's in there, the low oil pressure sensor switch, and I'm going to put this in there, and I'm getting a all female T, and then this is going to screw into the top of the block of the engine. Then from there I'm going to mount. You could go with the 90 and just put your oil pressure, but I figured I got room. I'm going to hook the low oil pressure switch up too. I figured I'd still like to have it just in case the gauge or something would go bad. I still have that. This pipe, this is going to come off with a 45 hooked to this pipe. I didn't want black pipe. I really wanted to keep everything brass, so I couldn't find a pipe in just over 3.5 inches. So as much as I hate to do this, I'm putting this extension nipple on here, and like I said, I hate to have more threads than I have to, but there really isn't much I can do about it. That's going to go into a 90, which my pressure unit's going to screw into there, and if it's not quite long enough, I got this adapter to get it up to the right height. So I had to go around all the big truck semi-truck dealers in Napa and try to find all this. But let me start putting my thread tape on here, screwing this together, and then I'll show you when it's done. If you do thread tape this, you have to leave a gap of a little bit. You can't go all the way down on these because you need a good ground on the block. So when I put that thread tape, I'm going to leave, you know, a few threads without tape and just put them up, you know, from about my thumbnail up this way. That way I make sure I got a good ground for all of this. All right, so this is the low oil pressure switch that goes in on your dash when your oil pressure gets low. You remove that, and as you can see how I put that Teflon tape on there, I left just a little bit of the threads exposed. I mean, most of these, you could probably still get a good ground, but I want to make sure with these electronic gauges that, I mean, you might not without doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and plumb this up, and then this switch is going to hang off of here, and I'm going to route it right through here. You'll see it when it's done, but this is the only easiest way to keep it out all this carburetor linkage that I could find. So let me go ahead and put everything on here, and then I'll show you when it's done. All right, I got it plumbed in. To get the length for when this shroud comes up, to get this where I needed it, I didn't want to, but I had to use 2 of them female to male extensions, as you can see there. Like I said, I should get a piece of pipe and just thread the damn size I need, but it's such an oddity that it's a length. Like I said, I didn't want to extend this, but I didn't have a choice. My sending unit now is going to screw right on there, and then when the shield's on here, there it'll be. Sort of a little bit in the way of the dipstick, but the air cleaner will go up on here, so at least it's up out of the way. I already checked earlier, the hood's going to close. That's about I don't know where else you could put one of these on here. I mean, I'm sure there's other places you could put it on, but I wasn't real sure. There wasn't a whole lot of information, so I figured if I could put it out of the top where this went in, you know, that'd be perfect. I'm going to go ahead and button all this down. I got to run a wire up into my gauge, and this wire now is not going to be long enough to make it to that, so I'm going to have to make an extension wire. I'm going to just jump it to make sure it works for tonight, because I went to get some of these flag connectors and I couldn't find, everyone was out of them. So I'd rather not have the connector go up and touch any of this. I'd rather have it come off. You know, I'm just going to do it right. So I'm going to hook everything up, you know, fire the tractor up tonight, make sure everything's good, that nothing leaks, and then I'll button all this up tomorrow. All right, guys. The outer post here, if you're looking at the gauge from under the hood, this is where the ignition wire is going to hook to, and the one further that way is where I'm going to run my lead off my sending unit to there. So if you're in the tractor, it'd be your left side is the ignition. If you're under the hood looking, it's the right side. Like I said, here's the ignition wire. I already tested it with a light. This must go to maybe something to do with the sensor for the water cool. I'm not sure. But there that is. I'm going to go ahead and hook all this up, and then we'll see if it works. Okay, guys, I'm getting everything all buttoned up. Would like to show you one thing here I did find. Getting all these brackets back in here with this in here now. Yeah, I mean, you can do it, but it was not an easy task. Nice thing is you can pull the dipstick and just move that over a little bit, and you can get a socket in there and then just move it back when you're done. There's quite a bit of clearance for the dipstick. I mean, it comes in and out, and worst case, now that all these brackets are in here, I could bend this back, angle it, get my camera up here, I could angle this way enough, but like I said, there's still room to, you know, get the dipstick in and out, and I might tweak on it some more, but now that all the guards are up in place here, I mean, it fits. There's not a whole lot of room, but it fits pretty damn good. So I got my wire ran, I got everything hooked up to the gauge. I'm just gonna run a jumper for here for now and clean everything up and then I'll fire it up and just make sure it works. I turned the ignition on. From where everything looks now, it should work. So let me throw a few more bolts on here, and we'll get in and see what happens. All right, guys, I got my jumper wire from here to my low oil pressure, idiot light. Just like I said, I don't have the right connector. I'm going to button all this up tomorrow. I just wanted to test everything tonight and make sure it works, and if it does, then I'll throw everything on there. I'll be good. I can still get the dipstick out fine even after having all the covers on. It's a little tight, like I said, but it works. Hood closes fine. That's not in the way of anything. I got my new fuel line on, like I said, with these brackets all here. I figured might as well, since I got it all apart. And these were a pain in the butt getting the bolts in with that, but you can move it around easily. There was the oil pressure sender unit. That's the part number. I'll throw this. This was $29.95, but I think we got it on eBay or Amazon or something for like 10 bucks. It wasn't bad. I'll throw the part numbers of this stuff on here, and like I said, let all you guys know. Right now I'm just gonna fire it up and let it run for a minute or so just to make sure the gauge works. And if the gauge does work, I want to make sure there's no leaks. I got my jumper wire in place. I'm gonna go ahead and try to fire this up. The low oil pressure light comes on like it used to. Turn it on and off. All the other gauges seem to be working fine. Oil pressure, as you can see, is 0. Fire this up. Light goes off. Oil pressure goes up. And at an idle, it's probably at over 20. But it don't move after that. So now when I turn it off, the needle goes down, and even with the ignition on, you can see the pressure's dropping. So I don't know how much oil pressure one of these Kohlers should really have. I mean, it's right around the 30, wide open, but I figured that when you rev the throttle all the way up, the oil pressure would continue to go up. So I'm gonna have to research that. As far as I can see, everything's hooked up fine. As you can see, I got the ignition on. Look how low that oil pressure is going, and my low oil pressure light still isn't on. So that means to tell me that these things have to get pretty low before they trip, or something's going on maybe with the wiring. I don't know, I'm gonna continue to mess around with this. If anything fails, I'll comment below and let anyone know. But if anyone knows how much oil pressure these things should run, please comment. But at least, even if it is 30, I can at least have a better idea looking at a gauge than trying to go by an idiot light. So thanks for watching. All right, just as soon as I shut the camera off, my idiot light came back on. So I don't know if it's the fact of maybe because it's in there sideways, for the pressure switch, maybe it's supposed to, be vertical, but I don't see how it would matter, because with a system with oil pressure, I mean, pressure's pressure. I don't see what anything different would be. But for what it is, as you can see, this thing's been off for probably 45 seconds to a minute before the low oil pressure indicator light even came back on. So having the gauge is definitely, worth it to me. Like I said, you can look down if you start to lose oil pressure. You get down around that 10 mark, something's going on, and to take a look at it. So I'm going to pull my air cleaner off here and just go over everything, make sure there's no leaks in my piping, and if I have any issues with this, I'll let you guys know. I'll comment below. Thanks.